Rev it up and welcome to Cars Yeah, show number 2501. Be prepared to be inspired.
This is Cars Yeah, where you'll enjoy interviews with inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Mark Green is here to provide you with a fuel injection of automotive inspiration. So get in, sit down, buckle up, and get ready for a wild ride here on Cars Yeah.
Hello, inspiring automotive enthusiasts, and welcome to Cars Yeah. Today I'm in Houston, Texas, where it's a little warm in the summertime, with a very special guest by the name of Kevin McCauley. Kevin, welcome to Cars Yeah. Do you have any gear, and are you ready to release the clutch?
I'm ready.
All right, we're going to have some fun. Now, before we get started, I always ask this question to kind of break the ice. What's one little thing that people don't know about you, Kevin?
I keep a spreadsheet of every car I've ever driven on it.
Oh, really? Okay.
So, even including rental cars and
oh my
something
gosh.
that I drove that was like a friend's car when I was 17, and I just keep it in this nerdy spreadsheet. Which I'm not even like a spreadsheet person. I don't like Excel or any of that. But for this, I make an exception, and it's just kind of fun to add to and keep some specs and some maybe a memory if there was something memorable.
Yeah.
And so.
Well, that was my question. Would you write any notes about the experience?
Yeah, if something is memorable and I really wanted to, I used to have just a text file that was things to never forget about this car, and then I moved it to this spreadsheet. So there's some that don't get a impression, but then there's a lot that do.
Now you got me going here, going, oh my gosh, I don't know if I could even ever go back and do that. I almost kind of wish I had, because all my years being around cool cars and all the photo shoots I was on and directing where we got to borrow cool cars and I got to drive them, going to racetracks, going to factories, driving cars. I wonder how many cars I've driven. I have no idea. That's interesting. I should have done that. Dang.
Yeah, I started it a while ago with just, a list, and then I put it in this format, and it's just kind of fun to keep up with.
So, of course, got to ask the question, is there one car of all these vehicles you've been able to sit in the driver's seat that stands out, that if you just right off the cuff, you'd say, this one?
I think the Ferrari F355, I've driven a few of them, and it was the car for me, when I was a formative teen getting into cars. Sure. And then just the way that it's just so alive. And I'm a big Porsche nerd, but this is the car that it just feels like nothing else. It's so cool, and the engine is it's still from a little bit erratic and weird, the engine management. It's not fully dialed in like a modern GT3 or something. So it's this high-strung engine, but it idles kind of weird, and it's just something to behold.
We shot one of those, actually a couple, but one stands out. It was a Spider. It was yellow, fly yellow. And the thing that I remember about that car mostly is how the pedals were way moved over, because of the way it was this is weird. Why are the pedals over there? That's the thing that stands out for me. It was fun to drive, and it was interesting, but it was and in that same day I drove an Enzo.
Oh my goodness.
An F40 and an F50, and talk about very different experiences in, all those different cars. It was interesting, but those are great cars. Still beautiful cars, and I don't know what their value, I'm trying to think what their values might be these days, but I know for a long time they were not super expensive, comparative to Ferraris, but as far as have they kind of come back? Are they one of those cars that your generation now is seeking?
Yeah, they're not they're not especially rare, and people are afraid of them because the maintenance is fairly nightmarish. So it's one of those that's always been the hurdle. Everyone loves them, but no one necessarily wants to own and maintain one. So, but they're climbing slowly. They used to be more affordable, and now they're slipping away.
Well, let's get started. Let me give you a little bit of a proper introduction to set the tone here. Kevin McCauley is a photographer and videographer based in Houston, Texas. As we said, his photography has been featured in over a dozen publications, and he shot for automakers, auction houses, retailers, and collectors. Kevin spent the early part of his career in advertising as a graphic designer, something he and I have in our past. He picked up the camera to shoot portfolio images of design work, but almost immediately began pointing the lens towards his lifelong passion, automotive subjects. He has spent more than a decade capturing the machines that move us all. His short-form documentary titled The Gray Fox An original 1967 Porsche 912 was chosen as the Video of the Year 2021 by Bring a Trailer and was nominated for the 2022 International Motor Film Awards. I'll put a link to that in the show notes page because it's well worth watching. I remembered it and I enjoyed it again this weekend before we got together. Kevin has now created his first book titled Waiting for the Sun to Come Down. It's published by our friends at Carrara Media. His book is filled with more than 75 different cars and over 100 photographs capturing dramatic light and shadows, and it's in a hardcover 10 by 10 format. We'll put links to how to get one of those in your hands as well. We'll be back in just a moment, but first a word from our sponsors, so give them a little love, and we'll be right back. Buckle up. Are you ready to take charge of your financial future? Then let me introduce you to Capitalize Your Finances. It's an online course designed to empower you with the knowledge and tools for mastering your money. This course will help you lay out the ins and outs of budgeting, the importance of emergency funds, investing strategies, and how to plan for a secure retirement. All this presented by financial planner Chris Paniotu. Chris has developed this course to help you effectively navigate your world of finance with confidence. Stop stressing about money and start taking control. Enroll in Capitalize Your Finance online course today and pave your way to financial success. To learn more, go to capitalizepodcast.com/courses, or better yet, go to the Cars Yeah website, show notes page for today's show, and click on the link under Capitalize Your Finances. You'll be glad you did. Do it today. So we are back. So I want to first go back a little bit and talk about the progression of your career, because you and I share something, graphic design. My listeners know I did that for 11 plus years, being a graphic designer, creative director, got into photography, didn't get into video so much back then because it really was a difficult medium back in the day. But where did this transition happen for you from graphic design, photography, and now a book publisher, or I should say a book author?
I was picking up the camera to take pictures of my portfolio, and I wasn't the most amazing graphic designer. I really wanted to be like world class at graphic design. I wanted to be at that level, and I thought if I can just photograph my work really creative, dramatically, I can, use lighting and stuff. Then, if it's a poster or a printed piece, I can make it look really amazing, and that would make my work stand out, make it look maybe a little better than it was. So once I had that, some of that gear, I started, obviously focusing on cars, which was just a lifelong passion. So I kind of got a lucky break. When I moved to Houston, it was a friend of a friend was looking for someone that could do car reviews for a local lifestyle website.
Okay.
And I have never written anything about cars except for long email screeds to my friends about the latest news and why I was outraged about something. So I thought, yeah, I could do this. And so I went in, I said, I have no writing samples, but I have all these photos and I can, I know my way around a camera and I really love cars. And they said, sure, you're hired for this. It was like a freelance job,
Sure.
every 2 weeks, do cars. So it got me around cars. It was a great break. I kind of hacked my way through the writing bits, but it was a lot of practice with cars and being around them. And then it's kind of expanded from there through, social media and Instagram. I guess it's taken many turns. And so I've just tried every different technique. I think in the early days, I was probably trying to emulate other photographers and do these, really elaborate composited shots and everything. But you just have to try a lot of things to figure out what it is that you like and that what you find exciting. And so coming back to Instagram, oddly, in the early days of Instagram, there was a lot of people that were, using just iPhones or just smartphones to photograph cars.
Sure.
there's so many people now, and people treat it like a portfolio, and I do whatever. And that's great. But going back 10 years, 9 years, there was some people that, in all fields, not just car photography, that were just, I'm going to stick to the phone. I'm going to edit on the phone. I'm going to post with the phone. And it was kind of this equalizer.
Mm-hmm.
And I was way more creative with my phone than when I had a camera and a lighting setup and all this stuff. And I could, it was humbling to realize that I could, take this press car and park it somewhere and set up lights and shoot it. And it was just kind of a dull result compared to if I see, a classic car on the street and it's the right time of day and I found some weird angle to capture it with my phone. So I was responding, and I mean, people responded, and I kind of responded to what I was doing with the phone, or I was using this tool that was a worse camera, but it was giving me like a more dramatic result. It has this really limited dynamic range. You know, you underexpose these highlights and you get these really deep shadows. So that kind of influenced me, and that's sort of how I found my style, as it were.
Yeah.
You know, you don't seek out to come up with a style and make like a signature thing. You just try a bunch of things and see what you like and see what is exciting to you. And for me, it was these photos with weird black shadows and you know, pops of cars in sunlight. So that's kind of what I've gravitated towards and what I've kept chasing. And I shoot lots of things. That is sort of my personal stuff for me. So I shoot lots of cars for auctions, and you know, you want it to be evenly lit and heroic and beautiful, and you know, I do that. And then it's like, if I have time, or if their light's right, or I see some spot and I pull over and I say like, oh, I'm gonna get this is for me, this is my thing. So the book is those shots, the ones that are for me, that I think are not there to sell the car or, you know, make it look absolutely perfect. It's to create this kind of sense of mystery and just create something that's a little different than what you're used to seeing.
Yeah, I like that. And I want to dive a little deeper into that. But first, I want to back up a little bit and talk about this video that you did for Bring a Trailer. And Bring a Trailer has become just so huge. In fact, I'm always proud to say that Randy Nonnenberg, the day he announced to the world they were going to start auctions, was his first time on my show. He's been on my show 3 times. And he gave me a scoop, as they say in the media world. And he goes, hey, can I mention this on the show today? And I went, are you kidding me? I've been thinking you should be doing this all along. And of course, it created an empire, and yeah, there we go. But this, you know, the videos that people shoot, and I've sold a car on Bring a Trailer, and a very simple video. And these little devices we hold in our hands are so powerful. And I want to talk about how that video came to be, because it's very unique. It's very cool. Of course, won an award. How did that thing come about?
Well, so these 2 sisters in the Bay Area reached out. They were looking for a photographer and a videographer, someone that could be a one-stop shop to help them sell their late father's 912. This man, George Vaccaro, he owned this 912. He bought it at the factory in the 60s. Porsche 912. He bought it. His plan was to buy it, drive it all summer in Europe with his wife, and then import it here and then sell it. And with European delivery, you know, you could kind of get, it was like a discount.
Oh yeah,
to do
back
that.
in those days, you could make, yeah. It was. I remember same thing. I went and picked up a car in '96, and you could save about $8 to $10 grand by doing it that way. Yeah, and even earlier back in those days, I have a friend whose dad did that when I was in high school, and I remember him saying, "Well, it's a lot cheaper." And I remember the day going, "Well, why would it be cheaper? I don't understand." But it was. Yeah. Anyway, go on.
So he ended up keeping the car for, you know, up until 2021, I think, when he passed. And he obviously loved it and was very passionate about it. So the sisters, twin sisters, they inherit the car, and they're like, we're not car people, but we know that our dad had this amazing story, and we want to find someone that can help us tell it. And we have all the photos and the records, and you know, we're going to put it on Bring a Trailer. But you know, it's not really about making a buck. It's about getting it to the right next owner. So they found me, and they said, can you shoot the car? And I said, I was like, I'm in Houston. Like, I can recommend someone who's fantastic right near you, but I will help you create this video. I'll edit it. You send me the stuff. So, you know, a few articles had been written about the car. I think there was one in Excellence about kind of the history. So we kind of took a little bit of that and adapted the story and had a narrator and just created this 10 or 11 minutes film about this man and his bond with this car. And we got to show all these incredible photos that he took. He took video on, I think, like 8mm film in Europe in that summer. So we incorporated that footage, and it was a really fun project and a nice tribute to this man. And of course, the car did really well on Bring a Trailer, got great reception, and people still find this video and are moved by it. So that's as like a creator of, if you're creating anything, whether it's writing or music or anything, like having people tell you that this moved them emotionally is such a powerful thing.
Yeah, it's a great video, and I'll put a link on Kevin's show notes page on the Cars Yeah website. Fairly easy to find out there, although on YouTube. So enjoy it for sure. But let's go back to your photography, because you've definitely done what you described. You have created a look and a feel, which is really hard to do these days, because before these wonderful little handheld phones, iPhones, you had to have serious equipment to do this, and then to be able to post it fast, and computers didn't exist. I mean, it's just so wonderful today. And these phones can do so much more than we ever, I think that most people know. And there's so many YouTubers, I've gone out and looked at them going, my phone can do that? I had no idea.
Well, I didn't mean, I need to clarify. The book isn't shot with the phone or anything.
Right. But the visual, that's okay. But the idea of the look and the feel that arrived from this is very intriguing to me. And as I go through the book, and there's a couple of things I wanted to kind of touch on. You have some wonderful sections in the book, because it's I hate the word coffee table book, but I'll use that because everybody understands. It's not a book you tuck on a shelf. You leave it sitting out so people can sit and enjoy it. You go back through it. That's what I've done with it. But you have some areas in here, and I wanted to touch on each of them. Into the Void. And I'm gonna ask you to explain what you mean by these, because there's a couple of them. Into the Void, Sensory Deprivation, Cars and Shadows, A Slice of Light, Negative Spaces. But let's start with Into the Void. What does that mean to you?
Into the Void is and this is challenging without the visual, but it's, if you imagine a car or any subject, and it's halfway in the sun, and then behind it is just kind of this abyss of just shadow, and there's no detail in the shadow, and it's just dark, and it's this incredible natural contrast that happens when the sun is just kind of at the right angle and you're standing in the right place. And I just really like the mystery that it brings. I think it just adds something to the composition where you're kind of like, what is in that area? I don't know what's there.
A sense of mystery?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it also highlights some special parts of the vehicle. It does a bit of that. He's become a friend of mine, Bill Pack, who is a guest on the show, a photographer, and he does studio shots in a similar manner. Not exactly the same, but where he'll focus on a section of the car, and then everything else is dark around it. And so it makes you kind of go, what is this? In some cases, if you weren't a car person, you go, is that like a part of a woman's body or something? I mean, her back and her hips, because it creates this sense of wonder, if you will. And I get it. And for those of you listening, you got to get your hands on this book, because it's just so cool. Another one, Sensory Deprivation, which kind of ties to what we're saying here.
So that actually says sensor deprivation. It's kind of a word play.
Okay.
It's kind of a word play about the camera sensor thing. Like I said, I talked about the smartphone photography in the beginning, and while this book is all shot with digital cameras of various professional level cameras, there is a section of 10 or 12 pages that those were some of those photos that I shot with a smartphone that are actually like iPhone photos, where it's like, yeah, if you shoot in the right light, in the right circumstances, in the right scenario, you can get, a amazing, like, printable image with this small device. So because that was kind of my origin for finding and developing this style, I wanted to include a section about that smartphone photography.
It makes sense to me. And having studied photography, been around photography, and shot a lot of photos and been in a lot of photo shoots where I've hired people to shoot. Of course, photography is all about light, but what people sometimes don't think about is the absence of it. And another section in your book is titled Cars and Shadows. Another one, A Slice of Light. So can you talk a little bit, and I'll add negative spaces, because to me, negative space is really important in visuals, not only photography, but painting, art, a lot of things in life. Thinking about these things, what are your thoughts as a graphic designer and a photographer of the use of shadow, the use of light and non-light to help inspire people out there not only who would like to be better at photography, but would like to play around with this concept. Because so many people, they go to a car show and they take the 3/4 view. You just see that over and over, ad nauseum. And I had a photographer on the show, I've had hundreds on this show, who said, I encourage people to look at vehicles differently. And he said, bend over and look at a car through your legs, looking back at the car. And he used it as an exaggeration of how to look at things differently. Lay on the ground, put your phone on the ground, hold it up high. Don't worry about shadows and things. Focus on details. How do you look at this slice of light, cars and shadows and negative spaces? What does it mean to you?
Well, that was really well put about the absence of light. It comes back to the graphic design, I think. And it took me, it was maybe in the last year or two that I realized that this direction where I've gone and explored is related to my graphic design past. And, in some way I'm sort of creating like poster designs and layouts and using the shadows as like, this is a big black color fill, this is a divider of the composition. So, it comes back to that. And I still love graphic design and I love photography and I love cars. And this is kind of how I marry those things.
As a photographer, how would you inspire a listener today that would like to be better at shooting cars? What types of advice would you offer them to experiment and get more creative with their photography?
I mean, I think it's like you said, looking for something else, avoiding eye level, look for something that is unseen and consider the whole scene as a composition. Don't just, fill the car edge to edge, think about the car in an environment and how all of that relates to it. And then conversely, if you're going to crop on a detail of something, like make sure it's clear why we're looking at this thing. Sometimes I do feedback submissions on my YouTube channel, and people send me photos, and it's one of these things where it's like, oh, I didn't realize this was kind of a problem because maybe it's not something I've run into with my work, but people will send me something, and it's like, why is the seam of the door kind of the most prominent thing on this crop? And if there's not really a reason, then it's like, well, this is maybe there's some room for improvement here. So if you're going to crop, I think be very deliberate, but. And above all, it is the light. The light is just so important. So if you're at a aesthetically pretty time of day, you're making it easier for yourself, and you're going to get nicer results.
Those golden hours, get there early.
Yeah.
When there's fewer people and the sun is really low. You'll love this. I used to take my son when he was young. In fact, I think he's been to 18 different Pebble Beach car weeks with me.
Oh, wow.
When he was in fact, he started going when he was 9 years old, but I gave him, back then I was shooting with Nikons, again, before the iPhones or any of that. And I gave him one of my cameras and I said, why don't you shoot? Because he was going back to school a couple weeks later, and they always did this thing, do some kind of a creative thing about your summer. And so he thought, I'm going to do a pictorial review of my trip to Car Week. And one of the things that was frustrating was the people. Waiting for someone to get out of the way. And going to cars, you can stand there and you always pick the guy who's going to tell someone else his life story and he never moves, right?
Right.
Yeah. And so my son, and maybe this is why he ended up going to RISD as a industrial designer, he said, I gave up and I started doing my entire shoot around the people, not the cars. I just changed my whole focus. And there's a pun. But even to the point of a car behind somebody's back. So the person is predominant, but he would pick people that were, the women were dressed beautifully or something. And I still use to this day during Women's Month on my social media a great shot he took of a woman laughing, leaning over a car with a wonderful hat, and her dress had all these cars on it. It was just a very impromptu type thing. But how would you advise people that are dealing with, and again, we're on Cars Yeah here, so we'll say car shows, and the people and the environment where it can get very busy and very frustrating because people want to take a shot of the car. How have you dealt with that?
Yeah, you definitely have to embrace the crowd, especially if you're, a hobbyist and you're just trying to get some cool photos from the event. If you're professional, you probably can get in early or something, so this isn't applying to you. But if you're going to a Cars and Coffee, embrace the people being there. One thing that I do that I have a tutorial about this on YouTube is, you set up a tripod, you maybe have a filter to like an ND filter, and you take a long exposure. And so you kind of get blurry people
Yeah.
around a car that's in focus. And you want people walking in front of the frame, and then you run into the problem where people see your tripod and your setup, and people like avoid it, and
they
it's like,
dodge
no,
you.
I want you to walk in front. So then I'm like, I'll be looking down at my phone or something, and press the shutter when no one thinks I'm doing it, so they'll walk in front of the camera.
That's a great idea. Well, I always say, use your environment, use
Absolutely.
the things around, look around the lens, and don't just focus on the car. Too many photography puns in this talk, Mark. But
They're hard to avoid.
Yes, it is. But focus on the environment. And you're right. I mean, it's great when you see a little kid or a person that's dressed fun or something like that to take advantage of it. I like to talk about inspirations, or what I call driving inspirations. You talk about, and I always tell people who are trying to get in photography, look at people you admire and try to emulate what they're doing first to learn how they did it, just as a exercise in not only creativity, but how did they get that shot? And then you can find your own look like you have. But has there been, or are there some inspirational mentors in your world of photography?
It's challenging because there are people that inspire me that I see, but I don't really know or have any personal connection to.
Mm-hmm.
So it's challenging. And I've been freelancing for more than 10 years. So I'm kind of a solo person as a photographer.
Sure.
So it is tricky. But there are some people that I worked with in advertising right out of college in New York that really set me on a path of having a creative workflow and being able to finish things and deliver and be productive and things that kind of stuff helps me to this day.
Absolutely. And again, I suggest to people, try not to tell people anything. I suggest to people to go and look and seek and even go back to some of the masters, some of the great photographers. You think about the use of light. Ansel Adams is a great example of that. I know he shot mostly nature stuff, but if you look at how he used light, was quite amazing.
Just and how long it must have taken to set that up and get his heavy equipment to the places he took it. I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah,
what he
I
did.
know. You think of the cameras that he had. How about challenges? Is there a specific challenge in your career that was probably a bit uncomfortable at the time, but it taught you a really valuable lesson?
Yeah, this is a great question. I never really talk about this, but I would say early in my career, there was a point where I was the kind of photographer that anyone loves to hate, where I could make a good post online. I could make like one good photo, you put me in the right scenario, or I could, cherry pick and come up with something that people will like, but I didn't have all the pieces to be a complete professional. And then, if you do editorial work, sometimes you can still kind of skate by because it's like, well, this is what I saw and this is what I'm delivering. And this was the experience, and that will also work. But that's not the job of being a professional. And sometimes the job is, we need you to get this and this and this and make it look great within the time frame and these limitations. So there was a time where I was hired by big car company. We planned for weeks. There was a location scout, a house exterior rented, like they closed roads for me. And I was just over my head because I was shooting like a car interior at 2 p.m. because that's when we scheduled it. But I didn't know how to do that or what to do in that situation. And I didn't speak up when we were scheduling these shots weeks in advance. I could have said, hey, we need to do this. I knew the schedule. I just kind of didn't know what I didn't know. So it was just one of those things because I really believe that you should make the most of every opportunity you get. And that's been really good to me up until that point with a few, that this was like a real hiccup because I just fumbled it and gave them the shots. It was fine, but it wasn't the best I could do because I wasn't prepared. So that was tough. And I definitely learned you need to just do so much. There are some people that can visualize everything and plan meticulously and anticipate everything. And I am not one of those people. So for me, I need to have lived and breathed all the experiences and situations that I could encounter with a camera and a car and light. And so, when that comes up again, I can reach back and I've got this toolbox of experiences and I can say, well, I've done this before and I did this and it was great. So just being a well-rounded professional and having vast experience and just taking lots and lots and lots of photos and not just cherry picking, but really being able to deliver when you're asked to do something. It's a different thing than just cherry picking a cool picture to post online. So it was a tough lesson, but I definitely grew from that.
That's why great directors are great directors. They can see so far ahead while they're in the moment. Mm-hmm. It's always amazing to me. And I've worked around people like that, and you're just, how do you put all the pieces together in your head? Part of it is being prepared. And the other part of it is what you say. You just have to experience it and do it and keep practicing. And you'll eventually understand how to work that all through. And in some cases, you need to hire other great people to have around you to help you with it, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there one vehicle in your life that has been a special vehicle story you can share?
Well, I have this 911 SC 1980 that I've had for almost 8 years. And it's been really, obviously I really enjoy photographing it, when I want to test something or it already looks good. It does 80% of the work for me. So the photo will probably come out okay with this car. Of course, I don't rely on that, but I just say that. But it's been a lot of fun. And back in 2018, I drove it from Texas to California for Rennsport with my dad.
Oh, nice.
We do this. There's this hill country rally here in Texas, in Central Texas, 4 or 5 hours away. Every year, it's like the largest gathering of air-cooled Porsches in probably the world now. I think it's like 300 cars show up and everyone just hangs out and goes on these drives and these scenic, amazing roads. It's in the spring, so it's not too hot yet. So, and I go with my dad every year. So it's been fun. I let him drive 1 year and I'm a really bad passenger. So it's better for both of us if I do the driving.
You're at the wheel. I tell you, I love the SC. I have a good friend, Bill, who found one years ago. It was just one of those magical finds. Everything aligned perfectly. Got it for a steal. Very low mileage car. It's a paint to sample metallic green.
Ooh.
SC. Yeah, I've always said, Bill, I want that car. And he goes, he's got lots of cars. He's a retired neurosurgeon. And he said, that'll be the last car I ever sell. But I've been able to drive it. And I love those. There's something about that era of Porsche. And I think it's a model that is coming up in value now because people are starting to realize it was kind of this era before the Carrera, because I had an 84 Cabriolet Carrera that was my daily driver when I lived in San Diego for many years. And
oh, wow.
That was a great car too. But the SC, there's just something, I don't know, something a little different. All the 911s to me are the same but different. And I think the SC is just a great car. So anybody out there looking to start driving a Porsche 911, check those out because I think they're going to continue to increase in value as they get older and older. But they tend to be bulletproof too. They're just
there's a couple issues that most of them have them ironed out by now, like head studs and stuff like that, and chain tensioners or something.
Oh yeah.
So most of them have had that fixed decades ago. So as long as you're dealing with CIS, which is a little spotty, but I think the CIS, which is the engine management, it's like this primitive hybrid of manual and primitive electronic fuel. Is it fuel injection or ignition?
The CIS meters the amount of fuel provided into the cylinders as a function of the air drawn into the engine. The CIS airflow sensor plate measures the amount of air that is being drawn into the system. And you're right, it did have some issues. Again, they were experimenting. It was something new. If you think of the era of cars that came after, a lot of changes happening. And so, but you're right. I think at this point, a lot of people have dialed all that out. I think about my early Porsches. Chain tensioners, yes. Blowing up air boxes. Oh yeah,
that's another one. Yeah,
I did that like 74.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
So, it always happens right in the middle of the busiest intersection in San Diego too. So that's just the way that goes. I like to play car psychologist and crawl into my guest's head a little bit. If you were a vehicle, if you were manifest as a vehicle, not what you want to be though. This is how you perceive yourself as the vehicle. What would you be and why?
Wow. Well, coming at this, I don't know. I think for some reason, I think the majority of people are some kind of sedan or four-door vehicle. I don't know. It's my question. It's my rules. I think it's like hubris to say like, oh yeah, I'm a sports car, unless you're like an Olympic athlete. So let's say I'm a sedan of some kind.
Okay.
And I like the 80s and 90s. So I've somehow made this into like a car and driver comparison test. And I'm comparing myself. So I'm thinking I'm not the obvious choice, like the all-star, like a BMW. I'm maybe more unique than a Mercedes, more soulful than an Audi. So I don't know why my brain goes here, but I think the answer is like an Alfa Romeo Milano.
It's so funny. As you were going through that, I was going, I think we're going to end up in Italy somewhere. And I don't know. I think the word soulful might have done it, because you think of Alfa Romeo, beautiful mark, wonderful mark, but challenging to own. Old ones for sure. And everyone who's ever owned an Alfa said you've never been a true vintage car collector till you've had an Alfa. Experienced that. So I like that answer. Yeah.
If you're listening and you can't picture this car, it is not especially beautiful. It is a boxy sedan from the 80s, but it's not very pretty by Alfa standards, especially. But it's not shouty. It's a little more stylish than some. It has like some history and a story to tell.
Yeah, there you go. I love it. You gave some thought to that, and I appreciate that. Again, I always ask about great books, and today we're focusing on Kevin's book titled Waiting for the Sun to Come Down. I'm going to put a link to that so you can go and do Now, are we still in a pre-order phase this week?
We are. Yeah, okay. We are in a pre-order phase. We're going to be shipping in this fall, so just a couple months away.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Well, I tell you, and I've always said this over and over again, holiday time, which isn't that far away now. My gosh, the year's flying by. But if you want to get your car buddies something that they'll keep forever, a book is a wonderful way to do it. And a book like this is even better. So I would go to Carrara, that's Carrara versus the E, carrarabooks.com/waiting. I'll put a link to that on Kevin's show notes page. Get a couple copies of this for your car buddies because they'll keep them forever and enjoy them. So there you go. I just solved all your shopping concerns in one fell swoop. So you're welcome. Let's go on the ultimate drive today. I like to be an enabler. I'm going to park any car you want in your driveway. Don't worry about the price. You can take it on a drive, and you can take anybody with you, including somebody from the past that's no longer with us, which opens up a world of unique opportunity. I even had one guest that took somebody in the future child they hope to have someday. That was an interesting angle, very unique. So what does the ultimate drive look like for you? Whatever you want, Kevin. I'm going to park in your driveway.
If you asked me this every day, I would have a different answer.
That's okay. You're a car person. That's okay.
But right now, I think there's this video of Derek Bell on the Nürburgring driving the 956, like it was like practice, for the last race of the full circuit in those Group C monster, those cars. And so I think if I could be in the passenger seat for that with Derek Bell just calmly, he's so soft spoken and just calmly talking through the corners and everything, I would scare the hell out of myself, but that would be, an experience you can't get any other way.
Oh, I think it'd be cool. I've been very fortunate to have him as a guest on the show, and he was in town for a local Porsche Club talk, and he was over at a friend of mine's shop, and my friend had said, hey, Derek's going to be here this morning. Why don't you come over? And got to spend some one-on-one time with him, and they had a beautiful Porsche sitting in there that was a car that he raced back in the day that I think it was Bruce Canepa car for a while also. And crawling into that thing and sitting next to him and just listening to him talk, I wasn't as lucky as your fantasy drive is to go on a drive with him, but just listen to him talk about driving it. Yeah, he's a very thoughtful, quiet-spoken person, which is nice as well. So that sounds like fun. I like it. Is there a particular track you'd like to be on with him?
Oh, I was saying the old Nürburgring.
Old Nürburgring.
Okay. I want to just scare myself, pants off myself.
Yeah. Have you ever had a chance to drive there?
I have not. Only in Gran Turismo.
Yeah, it's a crazy. I've been there 3 times now, all in rental cars, and it's kind of crazy because the first time I went, it's so big that it was sunny at the start and it was snowing on the other side.
Wow.
It was like, what the heck? Yeah, it takes a while to get to I can't even imagine the folks back in the day that raced that thing. It was just, yeah, it was crazy. So fun place to go, but they won't let you take rental cars there anymore. So don't try that one.
Oh,
yeah, it's in the contract. You've got tracking devices on those cars now. So you've taken us on a wonderful journey today. This has been a lot of fun. Waiting for the sun to come down. Again, this book is one of those that you will want in your library. Are there any parting thoughts that you can share with our listeners today before we let you go?
Whatever field you're in, whatever you're doing, be a sponge and learn techniques and try things. And hopefully you find something that you just find, thrilling. And that's how you stick at it and keep at it. You can do anything long enough to become good, but you really need that love for what you're doing to really get better.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing I would encourage people, you can go on YouTube and find a lot of people that give you a lot of, if you don't want to go out and start with some expensive camera equipment and you just have an iPhone in your hand, you'd be amazed what these little devices can do. And even in the editing process, nothing like what you and I may work with in Photoshop or some of these other devices in software programs. But you can do a lot of really creative things. And if you look at someone like Jeff Zwart and the stuff he does on his phone, you can get really creative, but just practice. Not like the old days where you had to buy a roll of film and get it processed, and it was very expensive.
Yeah.
This stuff is really cheap. I want to thank Brooke at IPB Media for putting me together today with Kevin. Brooke, thank you very much. Kevin, you have been so kind and generous for your time today. I want to thank you for your expertise and for sharing this new book with us. Very exciting. Maybe there will be another one in the future too. Until you and I talk again, I'll see you down the road.
Thank you so much for having me on, Mark. It's been a real honor.
This was great fun. I appreciate your time. If you're listening to this program, there's a pretty good chance you believe what I believe, that the collector vehicles we love are more than just a means of getting from one place to the other. They're a part of our culture, our identity, and as a people, they bring us together at vintage races, classic car auctions, and 1,000-mile rallies. That's why I support the RPM Foundation, which exists to ensure that the critical skills necessary to preserve and restore these important vehicles aren't lost to time. RPM stands for Restoration, Preservation, and Mentorship, and their goal is to inspire the next generation of vehicle restoration professionals through its outreach programs. And they include Shop Hop, Off to the Races, the RPM Future Class, and many others. These programs engage talented young people across the country and connect them with mentors and a variety of opportunities in the industry. For more information on how the RPM Foundation is driving the future of collector vehicles skilled trade, visit rpm.foundation today. For several years now, you've heard me talk about Linkage Magazine. I've been a subscriber since the start. Their talented and creative team brings you a spectacular publication and website that shares the automotive passion from a worldwide perspective. Linkage is about driving, restoring, collecting, and first-hand experience at collector car auctions and more. They bring you real-world values plus rational, experienced opinions on the current markets. They cover the automotive world and the people who share our passions. And Linkage Magazine has grown, mailing you 6 issues annually. Join me on this journey with Linkage. They're geared for the automotive life. You can subscribe at linkagemag.com.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's ride here at Cars Yeah. Drive on over to carsyeah.com to find show notes and inspiring automotive fun. Download your free copy of Filler Up, a fun book filled with gorgeous photographs of fuel filler fun, including quotes from more inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Download your copy today, and we'll see you next time on Cars Yeah.